The historic showdown between Camille Vasquez and Amber Heard was never just a cross-examination, it was the moment the world stopped to watch the truth being cornered. In only a few minutes, Camille tore through the narrative Amber had built for years, exposing cracks no one expected, and what happened next became the turning point that shifted the entire trial. The Depp-Heard trial became a global spectacle for one simple reason: people wanted to know who was telling the truth. Hollywood is used to scandals, but rarely does a broken marriage get exposed under a spotlight this harsh. Every detail, every sentence, every look was analyzed. This was not just a defamation lawsuit. It was a fight for identity, reputation, and survival. It was a battle between two stories that could not exist together. Before the scandal, Johnny Depp was Hollywood royalty. He was the face of eccentric characters, the actor who turned odd roles into box office legends. Studios trusted him. Fans adored him. He was known as the man who brought sincerity and mystery to every performance. But the moment Amber Heard's op-ed appeared, everything shifted. One phrase, a public figure representing domestic abuse, was enough to destroy decades of work. Johnny lost movies, contracts, and the image he spent 30 years building. He said he was erased from Hollywood overnight. Amber Heard, on the other hand, was rising. Not at the top yet, but on her way. She had the image of a modern, strong, independent woman, everything Hollywood wanted at the time. She was a symbol of a new era. But once the controversy exploded, the public started to question the narrative. Who was the real victim? Who was controlling the story? And from that moment on, the trial turned into a global conversation far bigger than both of them. In the middle of this chaos, Camille Vasquez stepped in. She was not a Hollywood name. She did not have a public persona or a crafted image. But inside the courtroom, she became Johnny Depp's quiet weapon. Camille was chosen for one reason: she knew how to break a story open. She listened. She observed. She waited for the moment where a single question could change the direction of everything. Her job was not to make Johnny look perfect. Her job was to make Amber's narrative collapse under its own contradictions. And that is why the cross-examination became the turning point. It was the one phase of the trial that could not be rehearsed. No script. No retakes. No emotional speeches prepared in advance. Only questions and answers. Only facts and reactions. Only truth pressed until it revealed the cracks or refused to appear at all. This was the moment when Amber Heard's story had to stand against real evidence, real witnesses, and her own previous statements. When Camille stood up and walked toward the podium, the courtroom fell silent, not because they knew what she was about to do, but because they sensed that something was about to shift. And they were right. The clash between Camille Vasquez and Amber Heard became the moment the world could not look away from, the moment when everything started to unravel. Amber Heard described Hicksville as the night everything spiraled out of control. She said Johnny Depp was jealous, angry, and unpredictable. She told the court that Johnny grabbed a woman's wrist, twisted it, and warned he could break it. She said he trashed their trailer afterward, leaving it in ruins. It sounded dramatic. It sounded violent. And for a moment, the room believed her. But Camille Vasquez was waiting for this part. Hicksville was her first strike, and she knew exactly where to hit. Camille started by bringing up a name Amber didn't expect: Morgan Knight, the manager of the Hicksville trailer park, a man who said he was there, a man who had already testified under oath, and his story was nothing like Amber's. According to Morgan Knight, nothing dramatic happened. No woman had her wrist grabbed. No screaming. No panic. No destruction. The trailer was not trashed. The only damage he saw was a single broken light fixture, something small, something cheap, something that absolutely did not match the scene of chaos Amber had painted. And the detail that stunned everyone: the person who was actually upset that night was not Johnny Depp, it was Amber Heard. Camille delivered the contrast calmly, almost lightly, as if she had all the time in the world. She looked at Amber and asked the simple question. Mr. Knight testified differently. Is he lying? Amber shifted immediately. She didn't attack him. She didn't defend her story clearly. She found a middle space, a space that made things even worse. She said she didn't recognize the man. She said he wasn't there. She said she didn't know who he was. Every word made the tension heavier. Camille pushed again. So he's lying? Amber refused to say yes. But refusing only made it obvious. If Morgan Knight said one thing and Amber said another, one of them had to be wrong. And Amber's unwillingness to commit made her look unsure of her own story. The courtroom felt the shift. It was the kind of silence that appears when everyone knows something important has happened, even if they can't name it yet. Then Camille tightened the trap. Mr. Knight testified he was there. You heard him say that, correct? Amber answered, yes. And he testified the trailer wasn't trashed. Amber hesitated again. He wasn't there, he doesn't know. A contradiction. A loop. A crack. Camille didn't need to raise her voice. She didn't need long speeches. She let Amber's own answers work against her. It was a method that felt simple but devastating. Let the witness talk until the witness exposes themselves. By the end of the Hicksville exchange, there was no explosion, no shouting match, no dramatic twist in tone. Just a clean, sharp moment where Amber's version of the story stopped matching the facts. And the internet noticed. Clips of that moment spread everywhere. It became one of the first viral highlights of the trial, the moment Camille proved she could dismantle a story piece by piece. Hicksville wasn't the biggest event of the case. But it was the first time the world saw Camille Vasquez take control. And from here, the pressure only grew stronger. The tension in the courtroom rose the moment Camille Vasquez shifted from Hicksville to the day Amber Heard walked into the courthouse seeking a restraining order. This was the moment the world remembered. The moment the cameras caught her with a faint bruise on her face. The moment millions of headlines appeared overnight. And Camille knew this part of the story carried more weight than any argument or accusation. It was the turning point of a global scandal. Amber had always said she was shocked to see paparazzi waiting outside the courthouse that morning. She insisted she had no idea anyone would be there. She said she didn't call the media, didn't tip off a reporter, didn't want attention. She said she was just trying to protect herself. That was her version. But Camille walked straight into the heart of that narrative. She started with a simple fact: Amber didn't go to the courthouse alone. She brought her publicist. It was a small detail on the surface, but the implication was huge. People don't bring a publicist unless they expect cameras, unless they want a headline, unless they know the moment will go public. And Camille made sure the jury felt that. Then came the witness everyone had been talking about, Morgan Tremaine, a former TMZ employee. He told the jury something that hit the room like a quiet explosion. TMZ had been tipped off. They knew what time Amber would arrive. They knew which entrance she would use. And they knew exactly which side of her face to photograph the side with the alleged bruise. That kind of information doesn't come from strangers. It comes from someone close to the source. Camille stood there, calm as ever, and asked Amber the question the whole world had been waiting for. Did you send anyone to tip off TMZ? Amber said no. She said she would never do that. She said no real survivor of domestic violence would want cameras outside the courtroom. But Camille wasn't done. She reminded Amber that the security footage of Johnny Depp smashing kitchen cabinets leaked to TMZ the same day Amber landed back in Los Angeles. And she reminded her that TMZ posted it online just 15 minutes after receiving it. That kind of speed is not normal. It only happens when the source is direct and trusted. Amber admitted she took the video. She admitted she recorded it secretly. But she insisted she did not leak it. Then Camille dropped the detail that stunned everyone. TMZ claimed they had received a shorter version of the video, one that had the beginning and the end cut out. The exact parts where Amber set up the camera. And the part where she smirked. Camille looked at Amber and asked again, "So you edited the video before it was leaked?" Amber denied it. She blamed coincidence. She blamed timing. She blamed everybody except herself. The jury watched closely. They didn't need legal terms. They didn't need long explanations. They only needed to see the mismatch between what was said and what was shown. By the time Camille finished with the TMZ segment, the courtroom felt colder. The narrative about Amber being shocked by paparazzi no longer held together. The explanation about the leaked video didn't match the facts. And the idea of a quiet victim trying to avoid the spotlight didn't match the reality of that day. This part of the cross-examination didn't just challenge Amber's story. It challenged the image she tried to show the world. And once that image cracked, the case moved into a different dimension. The courtroom grew even quieter when Camille Vasquez moved to the next part of her cross-examination. This time, she targeted something simple on the surface but devastating underneath: the photos. The bruises. The physical evidence Amber Heard claimed proved everything. Camille knew the images were emotional. She also knew they were the weakest link in Amber's story. All she had to do was press the right spots. The first photo Camille brought up was the one taken the day after Amber received her temporary restraining order, May 28, 2016. In that picture, Amber was smiling, walking with friends, looking relaxed. There was no visible bruise on her face. Not even a faint mark. Not even a shadow. Camille asked the question everyone in the room was thinking. There's no bruise on your face in this photo, right? Amber shifted. She didn't look at the screen. She said she couldn't remember when the photo was taken. She said maybe the makeup covered everything. She said the lighting could be hiding the injury. The jury watched quietly. Amber's answer didn't match the image in front of them. Camille did not argue. She didn't need to. She simply moved to another photo taken the same day, same outfit, same street, same friends. And again, no bruise. Camille didn't say a word for a few seconds. She let the silence do the work. Then she asked softly, "So, which version is true?" Amber repeated the same line: makeup, lighting, timing. But the explanation felt thinner now. The room could see it. Camille didn't push harder. Instead, she made a turn the jury never saw coming. She moved away from Amber's face and went straight to the images. Amber claimed showed chaos from Johnny Depp's violence. These were the photos of spilled wine, broken items, and shattered memories. And this is where Camille set her real trap. She pulled up Exhibit 512, a photo showing spilled red wine on the floor of the couple's penthouse. Amber had testified that this was from an incident on December 15, 2015. A violent night. A night, she said, Johnny attacked her and destroyed the apartment. Then, Camille pulled up Exhibit 725, another photo showing spilled red wine on the floor of the same penthouse. Amber testified this one came from a totally different night, May 21, 2016, the night she claimed Johnny threw a phone at her face. 2 different nights. 2 different fights. 2 different stories. But the photos? They were the same picture. Maybe not pixel for pixel, but identical enough that any ordinary viewer could see it. Same position. Same spill pattern. Same lighting. Same angle. Amber had used the same image to describe 2 different days. And Camille knew it. She asked the question quietly. These are the same photo? Aren't they? Amber panicked. She tried to shift the blame to the metadata. She said the pictures were partial, and she wasn't sure which was which. She said she was confused. She said she couldn't tell without seeing the unredacted files. Camille did not move. So which incident does this photo belong to? December 15, 2015? Or May 21, 2016? Amber couldn't answer. She said she couldn't remember. She said she had lived through too many moments like this. The jury didn't need training in digital forensics. They only needed one simple fact. The same evidence was used twice to describe 2 different violent events. And that made the entire foundation of Amber's version unstable. Then Camille went deeper. She brought up the sworn statements from Amber's friends, people who supposedly witnessed the marks on Amber's face and the damage in the penthouse. But Camille showed the jury how all these photos lacked timestamps, lacked clarity, lacked consistency. and she reminded them gently that Amber was the one who captured many of the images. She was the one who stored them. She was the one who chose when to show them. Every photo was supposed to be proof. But one by one, they became questions. By the time Camille finished this part, the mood in the room had changed. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just heavy. A kind of weight that settles when something important shifts, when doubt becomes visible. Amber's narrative depended on the bruises. It depended on the photos. It depended on physical proof that could not be explained away. But Camille had shown the cracks. The missing bruises. The repeated pictures. The unclear timelines. The explanations that shifted depending on the question. This was the moment the jury began to see the case differently. Not through emotion. Not through sympathy. But through inconsistency. Camille didn't accuse Amber of lying. She didn't need to. She simply held the evidence up and let it speak. And in Hicksville, it whispered. In the TMZ segment, it trembled. But here in the photos, it shouted. By the time Camille Vasquez stepped into the next phase of her cross-examination, the pattern was clear. Evidence didn't match Amber's story, and Amber had an explanation for everything. But Camille wasn't done. She moved into a territory far more dangerous: the witnesses. The real people who had stepped into the courtroom, sworn an oath, and told the world what they saw. Camille began listing them one by one. Kate Moss, Ben King, Morgan Knight, Isaac Baruch, Keenan Wyatt, Morgan Tremaine, security guards, house managers, neighbors, friends who drifted away, people connected to different periods of Johnny Depp's life, people who didn't know each other, people who had nothing to gain. All of them had shown up. All of them had testified. And many of them contradicted something Amber had said. Camille looked at Amber and asked the question that hung in the air like a blade. Are they all lying? Amber didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She stayed in a gray space. The same space she used in Hicksville. The same space she used with TMZ. She said, Johnny is a powerful man. People want to support him. People come out of the woodwork for him. It was the same explanation, again and again, a world full of people eager to lie for Johnny Depp. To protect him, to defend him, to stand on his side. But Camille wasn't asking about fans or strangers online. She was asking about people who had worked closely with Amber herself. People Amber once called friends. People who had no reason to risk perjury for anyone. Camille paused and let the jury absorb that. Then she asked, You didn't expect Kate Moss to testify, did you? Amber said no. You didn't expect Morgan Tremaine to testify? Again, no. You didn't expect Ben King to fly from England with detailed notes about the night in Australia? No answer. You didn't expect so many people to contradict you? Amber repeated the same line. I know how many people will come out for him. It was a simple answer, but it created a deeper problem. If every witness who contradicted her was lying, then the only person telling the truth in this entire trial was Amber herself. And that story wasn't believable, not to the jury, not to the world watching outside. By the end of this segment, the tension had changed shape. It was no longer about bruises or broken objects. It was about credibility, about how many contradictions a story could survive before collapsing. And Camille knew the jury felt that shift. This part wasn't explosive. It wasn't dramatic. It was colder than that. It was the moment the jury began asking themselves, if the truth is on Amber's side, why does nobody else see it? The next moment in the cross-examination was short but unforgettable. The kind of moment that becomes a clip, a meme, a headline. Camille Vasquez opened it with a single piece of evidence, the kitchen video. The one Amber secretly recorded. The one showing Johnny slamming cabinet doors. The one the world saw before the divorce deposition. Amber admitted she filmed it. Amber admitted she set up the camera. But she insisted she had nothing to do with leaking it. Camille didn't argue. She simply brought in the facts. TMZ received the video on the same day Amber landed at Lax. TMZ posted it only 15 minutes after getting it. TMZ had a shorter version, a version that was edited. And the edited parts were the most important parts. The beginning, where Amber positioned the camera. And the end, where Amber smirked. Camille asked the question everyone was waiting for. Did you edit the video before it was leaked? Amber said no. She said she didn't leak anything. She said she didn't even know how to leak a video. But that wasn't enough. Camille reminded her of the testimony from former TMZ employee Morgan Tremaine. He told the court that rapid turnaround like that only happens when the source is direct. When the video comes from someone important, someone who wants the moment published fast. Amber insisted again. It wasn't her. It wasn't her team. She said she didn't even know the video had leaked until her plane landed. But the smirk at the end of the unedited version told a different story. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was a tiny curve of the lips, but it changed the tone of everything. It looked like control. It looked like satisfaction. And it looked nothing like fear. Camille didn't tell the jury what to think. She didn't need to. All she did was place the edited version, the timing, and the smirk next to Amber's denial and let the jury connect the dots. This was the moment the cross-examination turned sharp. Not because Camille raised her voice, but because the evidence spoke louder than anyone in the room. By the end of Camille Vasquez's cross-examination, the courtroom felt different. It wasn't about anger anymore. It wasn't about who spoke louder or who cried harder. It was about clarity. Piece by piece, Camille had stripped away every layer of confusion around Amber Heard's story. Not by attacking, not by dramatizing, but by holding each detail up to the light and letting the contradictions reveal themselves. Johnny Depp's case wasn't won in a single moment. It wasn't the Hicksville clash, or the TMZ testimony, or the photos, or even the kitchen video. It was the way everything connected, how every crack in Amber's narrative led to another one, and how Camille made the jury see that for themselves. No pressure. No theatrics. Just simple questions that demanded simple answers. And in the end, the truth did what the truth always does. It stayed steady. It stayed consistent. It stayed standing even when the noise got loud. The cross-examination became more than a courtroom exchange. It became the moment the public realized how powerful clarity can be. Camille didn't try to win the argument. She only tried to let the facts breathe. And once they did, the world saw the difference.